I'll just try and share my my presentation just to see if that works. Yeah. Are you able to see this?
Screen sharing. Yeah, it's saying screen sharing started. കാണുന്നുണ്ട്.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You can see the presentation. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Cyril, ഞാൻ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യണേ.
Yep.
Okay, good morning. പോരാ, ശബ്ദം പോരാ. ഗുഡ് മോർണിംഗ്. ഓക്കെ, എല്ലാവരും എഴുന്നേറ്റല്ലോ അല്ലേ? അപ്പോൾ 5 കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് എനിക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത്. നമ്പർ 1, സോറി ആൻഡ് താങ്ക് യു. സോറി ഫോർ മേക്കിംഗ് യു ഗെറ്റ് അപ്പ് ബിഫോർ 8:55 AM. നമ്മളും ഈ ഒരു പെയിനിൽ കൂടെ മുമ്പ് പോയതുകൊണ്ട് എസ്പെഷ്യലി അമൽക്കിരനോട് ഇല്ല. അപ്പോൾ അമൽക്കിരൻ ഈസ് എ ഹയർ ലെവൽ. 8:59 എഴുന്നേറ്റിട്ട് 9 o'clock ക്ലാസ്സിനെത്തുന്ന ആളാണ്. അപ്പോൾ സോറി ഫോർ ദാറ്റ് ആൻഡ് താങ്ക് യു ഫോർ കമ്മിങ് ഇൻ ടൈം ആൻഡ് ഫില്ലിംഗ് അപ്പ് ദിസ് ഓഡിറ്റോറിയം. Number 2, why are we here or why are you here? When my batch was in final year, we had most of us did not know whether they'll get a job, what kind of job they will get. They had gone for some internships, but they were not clear. You know, what should you be equipped with to do that job? Is there any other option other than the naval architecture field? What are my future study options? Based on that background, we thought that in our Silver Jubilee year, we could contribute by sharing our experience. We have seen that happening in the Silver Jubilee celebration of all other batches. But that happens over a period of just 2 hours. So you can't capture the experience of 25 people over 2 hours. Apo, individually or as a group, whichever way the people are comfortable, each one of us will come and share our experience, personal, professional, career, all this stuff, so that you can have an idea that what did each guy do and how do you identify with that, or do you like this particular profile? Then you can connect with that person. We'll share the numbers, email IDs. You can connect with those people and share your personal doubts which you don't want to ask in this forum. So that's why you are here. Number 3, what we want you to do. We don't want you to be passive listeners. അതായത് ഇവിടെ വന്ന് ഇരുന്നിട്ട് ജസ്റ്റ് സീനിയേഴ്സ് പറഞ്ഞു ഇരിക്കാനായിട്ട്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ദീപക് സർ പറഞ്ഞു ഇരിക്കാനായിട്ട് അപ്പോൾ വന്നിരുന്നു. So we didn't, but do not be passive. The whole purpose is for you to benefit from this. There is no takeaway for us. There is nothing that my batchmates are going to benefit. In fact, it is night 10 o'clock for Cyril in Houston. So he is going to sacrifice his personal time for your benefit. So please make it interactive. Please ask doubts, whatever it is, so that because all of us are willing to share that experience, so that we do not want you to make the same mistakes that we made. That is the crux. So that was number 3. Number 4, some useless trivia of numbers. So what does number 21 stand for you? Any relevance of number 21? Favorite? Favorite cartoon? Is there a cartoon called 21? Okay. Okay. Roll number 21. Okay. Anything else? The number 21 has any significance? 2000? 2001. No, 2001 is not number 21. I'm asking about the number 21. Number 21, I thought, the legal marriageable age for men in India, right? Okay, so 21 has got many other significance. It's there in the Fibonacci sequence. If you add the first 6 numbers, you'll get 21, etc., etc. But 21 is our course or batch number. And when we graduated, we were somewhere around 21, 22. Now we are all 47. And the senior most batch here is the 47th batch. So I'm trying to make a connect between 21 and the Department of Ship Technology. And we graduated in 2001. So 2 and 1 there again. And we were the first batch of the 21st century. And definitely not the best because you are all there. All right. So finally, number 5, about Cyril. Now I had shared a Word document or a PDF document about Cyril's profile. That was for you to come prepared as to what to ask. Okay, to look through his profile and find out what could I ask him. So as you can see, in the world there are leaders who are born and the leaders who are made. And Cyril is one of the persons who belongs to the born leaders category. As you can see, he was from Giridipam School, Kottayam, and he was the school leader there. In the Department of Ship Technology, he was the editor for Ships Technique. And he was the one who led us through the entire Ship Technique process. We conducted the anchorage in 2000. He was the lead for that. He was the one responsible for getting a large number of sponsorships. So management, sales, marketing was in his blood at that time itself. And while in college itself, he had decided that he will go ahead and do an MBA. And he went, cleared the CAT and did his MBA in MDI Gurgaon, where again, he was the general secretary of the student body there. So the trajectory of Cyril was set at that time itself, and he had visualized a path for himself, which he followed through. And he was very lucky, or probably the maritime industry was lucky, that he still is in the maritime fold. He is in maritime logistics. So which is a double whammy for him, because he's a naval architect who is into maritime logistics. So which helped him a lot in a way. And he still stays connected with all of us because of that as well. So with that, I hand over to my dear batchmate, Cyril Wagis. Over to you, Cyril.
Hey, thanks, Deepak, for the introduction. And to the group who's there, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands the context, what Deepak was also mentioning. This is not supposed to be a one-way a lecture. I mean, I will cover few things about introducing the industry I'm working into you. So that maybe if one or two of you may want to consider a career in logistics, I mean, I'm happy to spend time after this meeting or during this meeting to guide you and to give you some feelers about what you should potentially be looking at and so on and so forth. Feel free to ask questions anytime. I'm one of you. If I could get back in time, I would certainly go back to the campus and relive the 5 years we spent there over and over again. Because that was a time which were the formative years for us. We had a lot of fun. We went through a lot of stuff together. And that network we've still kept. We meet, especially with Deepak being in Cochin, we meet at least once a year when everybody is together. So that's an amazing feeling to have. When my kids ask me who my best friends are, I tell them that, look, Harish uncle, Deepak uncle, Rajesh uncle, and so on and so forth. All of them, incidentally, happen to be my batchmates from the university. And the bond is so strong that even if we don't speak to each other every now and then, we know that if there's a situation, or if we need some help, or if we need some guidance, or if we need to just share something, this group is always there to support. So just wanted to make sure that you feel comfortable asking questions whenever you want to ask questions, right? Like Deepak mentioned, I want to quickly start before I go into the presentation. I wanted to quickly start a little bit about how I got into logistics, and then I get into the presentation. But before that, I need to, like Deepak mentioned, it started in Cochin University. When I was in the university, I mean, I was generally involved in arts festival and so on and so forth. Probably in our second year, the 17th batch, which was our super seniors, they decided to restart Anchorage as a festival. So Anchorage, I think they did one in 1989, and then the second time they started Anchorage, and then it somehow for whatever reason it paused, and then it was again in 2000, no, 1997, where they started Anchorage again. So at that point of time, the SNA secretary and we all sat together, and nobody knew how to run a cultural festival. Nobody knew how to raise the financing. Nobody knew how to get the colleges to participate, how to plan for the events. So that was the first time I got a feeling of doing stuff together as a team, working together, dividing responsibilities, taking ownership of certain things, and so on and so forth. And probably for almost a month, a group of us, we were out there in Kochi, going to pretty much every shop, every institute, every organization that we could think of or we could lay our eyes on, trying to have these cold conversations with the receptionist to be able to go into and talk to somebody at a managerial level so that we can ask for a sponsorship. We had no credibility whatsoever at that point of time, other than the fact that 10 years earlier we had done an Anchorage in Cochin University. But somehow we managed to pull this through and have a great event. And then we did the Anchorage in the following years. And my SNA secretary Harish is also on the call, incidentally. And then when we did our Anchorage in 2001, I think we managed to bring it to a scale with reasonable amount of sponsorships and a surplus budget and so on and so forth. Though Harish was hiding for few days after the event because there were so many creditors who were trying to get their money back. But then we managed to become net positive over a period of time, and we collected all our areas. Now, you may ask, oh, what is the relevance of all these things? What did happen during the engagements in arts festivals and organizing stuff and meeting people and so on and so forth? I realized that that's an area where I have interest in. Now, in terms of talking to people and making packages specifically, one of the packages which we made incidentally was we went into a computer. I don't know if they're still in existence. It's a computer called Lakhotia Computer Center in Kochi. So that was a time right before the internet boom, the Y2K. I don't know how many of you would have heard of the Y2K craze and so on and so forth. So there was a lot of focus on you need a lot of IT engineers. You need everybody who has any background in IT is going to get placed and so on and so forth. So there was that particular boom which was there. So walked into Lakhotia Computer Center, met the managing director, and said, "Look, you need to invest in our event." And we quickly somehow liked each other, and we started having frank conversation about what we can offer them and what they can offer us, right? And we finally came to an agreement that they'll pay us 6,500 rupees for a sponsorship, and in return we will give them we will send our students to the computer center who will and they will teach C, C++ or whatever were in fad those days. So that became a model which we would replicate every year. When the juniors would come, we would make sure that somebody would have a pep talk with the juniors about how important it is to have computer literacy. Send at least 5 people at 1,300 rupees for the course to Lakhotia Computer Center. They will write a check without any preconditions, but with an implicit understanding that we will honor our word. And that association continued. Till date, I'm still in touch with the guy in Lakhotia Computer Center. So the time you spend in the university should be a time for exploration, right? I mean, you make your friendships, you explore what your interest is, you figure out where your passion is, and then taking a call on what you may like doing and what gives you real happiness, and then pursuing that as an option. or taking a call about what you may not like doing for the rest of your life. So, for example, for me, with the internships I quickly realized that I would not enjoy sitting in a yard or walking around in a yard and doing a production work, or sitting in a design office and doing design all day. Is not something that I would really enjoy. So for us, it was probably close to the final year when we started thinking, okay, if I am a naval architect and if I don't really enjoy doing naval architecture in the core functions, then what do I do next? So that's when I decided to go and do my MBA, spend some time studying, preparing for my CAT, and then went to MBA, and then started this career. So when when I joined logistics back in 2004, there went a lot of naval architects from Cochin University working in logistics. But afterwards, over the last 20 years, I see quite a lot of our friends working in companies related to marine transportation, right? Not just for a shipbuilding side, from a shipbuilding side, but more from a commercial side, from an engineering side, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a glimpse on some of these companies that you may want to keep on your radar if this is something of interest. Um, uh, when I'm right now based in Houston, and every time I make an introduction, I make it a point to mention that I am a naval architect, and in a world of engineers, in a world of commercial people, the being a naval architect is a big thing, and I take immense pride in being a naval architect. If you stay back as naval architects, that's an area where you will get a lot of respect if you're able to contribute that way. And if you decide to branch out, it is still a good segue into going into the real world. So anytime you have a question, please just I'm not able to focus on the video of the group there, but feel free to ask the question. Just raise your voice, and I'll pause and respond. So, going into the presentation, this is what I wanted to cover today. The industry I work in is called the EPC industry, or the engineering, procurement, construction industry. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction on the EPC industry. I wanted to give you some introduction into the key functions within the EPC industry, a little bit on supply chain, where I belong, and drilling down a little bit into logistics, where I specialize. And for those of you who may want to look at a career in logistics, I wanted to talk about a few roles in logistics that you can potentially look at. Now, if you want to pursue a career in logistics, the first thing to do would be to try and identify which companies you want to track. So I'll talk about a few companies who are in the segment between the owners, EPCs, and so on and so forth. Then I'll go into some challenges we see in logistics. I'll give you a little bit of a pep talk on why to choose a career in logistics. And then it would be towards the end, I will try and share some things which I would have probably told myself if I were sitting on your side today, 20 years ago, on what I should be focusing on, or what else I should be focusing on, other than having fun and living my life, right? So and wanted to give you a little bit of a context. So from an EPC perspective, typically that means that when an owner, and when I say an owner, it's a company which, like Chevron or ExxonMobil or Shell, if they want to invest in a refinery or a petrochemical plant or a chemical facility, um, they would typically um, give the order to an engineering, procurement, and construction company. And their role is to do the engineering based on what is required as the output, and then procure the materials or give orders to fabricate certain things. And then go ahead and construct it on the site and turn it over to the owner. It's pretty much like building a house. So if you want to build a house, you will find a contractor who will build the house, and they'll take care of the permits, they'll take care of the design, They'll buy the materials and they'll build the house for you, and they'll hand it over to you. So on a slightly larger scale, that's where the EPCs like us come into the picture. Now, the projects that we handle span across multiple business lines. Traditionally, the largest ones have always been on the oil and gas side. Now, within the oil and gas or an energy solution side, you have LNG. There is a lot of investment which is happening on the liquefied natural gas side. There are refinery projects that we do. There are chemicals which is a big part of this, and so on and so forth. The second large component of the EPC industry, from an owner's perspective, is on the mining and metals, right? With what we see in terms of a demand for electric vehicles and renewables and so on and so forth, and cell phones and chips and all, the demand for minerals has never been as high as it is today. So if you look at the trajectory of copper, gold, nickel, lithium, and so on and so forth, they've gone through significant changes and demand cycles over the last few years. So we see a lot of interest on the mining side, especially right now. We see more on the copper and gold side, and same on the metal side, right? With all the car manufacturing, you need more aluminum. Steel is a big thing. With all the tariff situations here in the United States, there's hopefully a lot of investments to come into steel. So mining and metals is a big one. Advanced technologies, when it comes to AI, right now, I guess a lot of you use ChatGPT, but every time you make a query on ChatGPT, there is a lot of processing which happens, which needs a lot of computing power, which needs a lot of power. Right, and all the hyperscalers, whether you're talking about the Google or the Microsoft or the Metas of the world, or the Amazons, they all need to build significantly large number of data centers all across the world to feed the engine. We are just at the start of the AI revolution. So over the next few years, we'll see significant number of data centers popping up everywhere. With the primary concern being, do I have availability of power? Then I build a data center and then get it done, right? So that's a significantly large slice of the market where we see a lot of activities. When it comes to life sciences, that's again in the United States, for example, your GLP-1 drugs or weight loss drugs, that's a big rage here. And all the pharmaceutical companies, they want to build more and more and produce more of these drugs to just to feed the demand which is there around these drugs. So we see a lot of activities in the life sciences. Advanced manufacturing, I would say mostly on the chips for the IT industry. There's a lot of investment coming here, and again on the power side, whether it's for the general upkeep of the energy consumption of a city or of a country, or whether it is for all these new data centers which are extremely power intensive. There's a lot of investment in power, whether it's on the nuclear side, on the conventional side, on coal side, and so on and so forth. So overall, these are the segments in which we do a lot of work. Now, you may have a question about where do I fit in. So I want you to take a look at the image on the right. An owner would be and I'll go to some of the examples. The owner would be the one who's investing. I mean, it's like if you're building a house, you're the owner, and the EPC is your contractor, right? Freight forwarder is normally a non-asset based specialist who has a network all across the globe, who knows how to move cargo and different types of cargo, and we'll go into that. But they're not the asset owners. They don't own their ships or trucks and so on and so forth traditionally, right? And they would subcontract to the shipping lines, which are the lifeline of the industry. Anything, the clothes you're wearing, the cell phones you're holding, the watches you have, the shoes you wear, they all probably came through, were shipped by some freight forwarder on a ship and delivered to a wholesaler, which finally makes its way to a retailer before you pick it up, right? So the shipping lines are lifelines of the globalization or the trade that we see as of now. Now, in our industry, we also have we end up moving a lot of heavy heavy equipment, right? In my job, sometimes I get a call to take care of a critical 10 kilogram package which is urgently required at site, and then we need to make some urgent air freight arrangement. And sometimes we move cargo where a single unit would be 25,000 tons, and we need to find a very specialized way to move this cargo across the seas from the place where they're fabricated to the place where they need to be consumed, or to the site. So the heavy haul would be an important part of it. And then I put a surveyor or a marine warranty surveyor into the mix, because that's also an opportunity where you, as a naval architect, you certainly have a lot of credibility to go in and work as surveyor, who can either be appointed by an insurance company to take care of the cargo interest, or could be appointed by the owner of the EPC or the freight forwarder, to make sure that the engineering concepts and the calculations which have been done during the design stage are taken care of when you do the physical operation, right? Now, just wanted to give you some terminologies, and again, don't worry too much about this, but these large projects, when we talk about these large projects, some of these could be 10, 20, 30 billion dollar worth of investments which clients are making. So which means there is a long gestation period before any of these projects come to life. So normally it all starts with a pre-feed or a front-end engineering design. So when a client comes back and says, look, I want to produce so much oil in this refinery, or I want to refine so much oil in this refinery into these grades, they have their specs, which is based on their expectation of how the market would be. And then the front-end engineering study is when design is when you actually employ an EPC like us to do the engineering design, and to look at some of the feasibilities about, can this be done? How should this be done? What are the critical components? What are the lead times? What are the main process involvements in this, and so on? And so, it's a very, very heavy focus on engineering and a little bit of a supply chain engagement, because end of the day, identifying the components to build a house is not the only thing which is required. You also need to figure out where to buy it from. Are there people who are willing and capable to fabricate such equipments, or to produce such equipments? Do they exist? Can we get involved in terms of designing something with the supplier or a fabricator, and so on and so forth? Would be part of it. EPC, EPCM is when you actually get a contract to do the physical work. So you then do a lot more detailed engineering. You go ahead and do the procurement. You buy materials from all over the world, and then once the material reaches the site, you start ground up and you start constructing. EPFC would include EPCM would be engineering, procurement, and construction management, where you're managing the construction on the crew on the site without taking the liability for it. EPFC would have the fabrication element involved, where some of the companies, especially when you talk about offshore oil and gas and so on and so forth, a lot of companies would do the engineering, procurement, would also have their own facility to fabricate some of these large equipment, and then go ahead and do the construction. In some cases, they do an EPFCI, which includes the installation at site, mostly relevant for offshore installations where you have specialized assets and specialized engagements to install these large jackets and platforms at an offshore location. And then PMC would be where you act as the owner's representative for a project management, as a project management consultant or a program management consultant, to get the work done, or to manage multiple EPCs who've taken separate scopes. Traditionally, we see mostly the contracts being lump sum turnkey, which means you agree on a price with the owner would agree on a price with the EPC, and then you get it delivered at that price. Of late, we see a lot more cost reimbursable structure, where, because the industry is extremely busy, and because the industry has been volatile from a supply chain perspective, there's a lot of interest for owners to get into a cost reimbursable structure, where they say, look, let's agree on the basic principles, hourly rates for your staffing, and so on and so forth. And once we have an alignment on the scope and on the extent, every expense what you incur in terms of making a purchase or moving cargo, that we will reimburse you that scope. So that's something where the EPCs take lesser of a commercial risk and share the risk with the owner. But if there are any savings that would accrue to the owner and not to the EPC. So just wanted to give you some familiarity with terms before I go a little deeper into the functions. Any questions? Again, as I said, feel free to ask. All right, now key functions within the EPC segment, and again, the reason why I mentioned these now is to also give you a feeler on if this industry excites you, and if you're interested in terms of making a difference and being part of something which is historic or iconic. You can have opportunities pretty much everywhere within that industry, right? Now, engineering is obviously the core function of all the EPC companies. We are engineering companies at the end of the day, where I handle part of the supply chain function, but it all begins from the engineering disciplines. Now, every EPC, every owner will have their own naval architects doing calculations and coming up with concepts and doing the assurance about the execution and so on and so forth. So on the engineering side, there would be a lot of opportunities that you can look at. The only thing you need to be aware of, none of the EPCs would have let's say hundreds of naval architects working within the EPC. So it is a smaller pool of opportunities that you have. But nevertheless, there are still opportunities to work in EPCs, and you'll find a lot of your seniors, especially in traditional hubs like Houston, Aberdeen, Singapore, and so on and so forth, working with EPC companies. So and on the engineering side, right? Now, once the engineering is done, or in parallel to the engineering, the supply chain starts coming into action. So we take the engineering, the material takeoffs from the engineering, and we identify, okay, we need to buy steel. Now, how much quantity of steel? What grade of steel? Where do we buy from? What are the quantities? How do we ship them? All these things go on in parallel and then the other equipment, what are the major equipments? Who are the suppliers who can fabricate it? Where are they located? Are they in China, Korea, India, Europe, and so on and so forth? So supply chain plays a major role in terms of getting all these projects done to the finishing line. And then fabrication is also something where you will find a lot of naval architects working, especially when it comes to offshore fabrication. All of them would require the help of naval architects. Sometimes the services which a naval architect would provide to a fabrication company would be outsourced, where the design firms or consultants would provide their naval architects to support the fabrication industry. And then construction is when things physically get constructed at site, and then installation, like I said, is when especially for an offshore engagement, you do the installation. The offshore installation again is heavy on engineering, and a great opportunity for young naval architects like you to come in at an early stage, learn the ropes, become specialists, and quickly become a name in the industry. I would say within the EPC industry, there are a lot of opportunities that we can potentially look at. Now, I belong to supply chain, so I wanted to kind of break down what different functions exist within supply chain. So one of them would be prime contracts. Prime contracts is when let's say an EPC signs a contract with an owner. There are specific terms and conditions which are there in the contract between the EPC and the owner, which is called the prime contract. Now, it's important to make sure that everybody knows what they're signing on. There are liability conditions, there are scope of work definitions, there are insurance requirements, there are deliverables, and so on and so forth. The primary reason why you need to focus on prime contracts is every time you do a subcontract, there are certain conditions from the prime contract which needs to be flowed down to the subcontractor. So, for example, I cannot sign an agreement where I take a certain liability and then I go ahead and subcontract a part of it to a subcontractor, and I completely ignore the liability condition. Then I'm exposed if I'm in the middle. So it's an important function. Estimation is where it all starts when an owner would reach out to an EPC and say, I need to build this. And that's when the estimators get together. They pull the engineering information. They look at historical benchmark data, and they put a pricing together to go back and tell the owner, look, this may cost maybe $2.5 billion, or this would be in the range of $25 billion, or $200 million, and so on. So that's where estimation comes in. Commercial strategies is something which is fairly unique to Fluor, which is the company I work with, where we took a call maybe 10, 12 years ago to say, a lot of the knowledge is decentralized with people who are on a project and working on a certain discipline. There are certain things that we need to boil up, bubble up, and handle at a corporate level, right? Supplier relationships, benchmarking, market intelligence, and so on and so on. You can't expect everybody to be an expert. So we started creating a group where they consolidate all the commercial information. They look at what's happening in the market. They look at what's happening with the currencies, with commodities, with suppliers, with the tariffs, and so on and so forth. So that's something that is very, very unique to Fluor. Procurement is when the function where, okay, we know we need to buy 50,000 tons of steel. We know we need to fabricate 200,000 diameters of spools. We know we need to have vessels and columns and so on and so forth. Identifying the right supplier, placing an order, negotiating the terms and conditions, agreeing on the delivery schedule, and so on and so on. That's what procurement does. Now, procurement, at least in our world, is responsible for buying materials, wherein the next function, contracts, is responsible to buy services, right? So your services at the field when it comes to construction, your services for logistics, your services for any technical services. These are all part of the contracts group, which is a completely different animal in terms of how they negotiate and what terms and conditions, and how do you ring fence the expenses, and how do you focus on the unit rates, what part can be put as lump sum, what part has to be unit rate, what part can be reimbursed, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of that focus which happens on the contract side. The next element would be on expediting, where once an order is placed on a supplier, the expediters take over, and then they start following up. Okay, have you done this? Today you were supposed to hand over these engineering documents, these cargo lists, and so on and so forth. So they are the ones who then, once a buyer from the procurement group places an order, the expediting people are the people who expedite the materials, and so on and so forth. And then we come into the picture because once something is ready to move, logistics need to get involved and then move things to the site. And then once things reach to the site, then field materials management takes over. They do an inventory check. They hand it over to construction. They issue it to construction. They make sure that if there are any shortages or overages, they are accounted for, and so on and so forth. So that's generally within supply chain. And within supply chain, I wanted to drill a little into logistics. Look at a high level. Things need to move from point A to point B. The point A could be in India, in Europe, in Africa, and Middle East. It could be anywhere. And then the site, they need to be moved either to a fabrication yard or to the final site, depending on what needs to be moved. Some of it will move by air. Maybe few of those things would move by as a courier. Some of them would be booked on a passenger aircraft. Some of them would be charters or commercial aircraft, and so on and so forth. But because we construct large facilities, most of the cargo we move would move by sea, right? Because by sea you have the ability to increase your dimensions and weights and find a creative solution to move this on. Now, the sea transportation is where you, as naval architects or budding naval architects, you will have most of the opportunities that you see to work either with a container carrier. Now, the Maersk or the Hapag-Lloyds or the Coscos of the world. I mean, there are a lot of these large container carriers who need who have in-house naval architects and who need a lot of engineering support from a naval architect, not purely from let's say I want to build a new 28,000 TEU container ship. Let me get a naval architect to design. Now, beyond that, even from a regular operations perspective, there are naval architects who are involved in terms of supporting these. Break bulk is where we do most of our work and we have most of our spend. So you would have seen a lot of container ships going around because that's the main line of global trade. Everything you do on the FMCG side, on retail, most of these move in containers because they are all small SKUs that you tend to move. But anything which doesn't fit into a container, you still need to move, right? I mean, I can't go back and tell the engineers to design every component of a refinery or a petrochemical plant to fit into a container, because then you're talking about significantly large number of containers, significant work which needs to be done at the construction site, right? So a lot of the equipments we move are significantly large equipments, very heavy equipment, and so on and so forth, which certainly do not fit into containers. So we have specialized vessels which use their ship's cranes, and some of them can lift maybe 2,000 tons in a single piece and onto the ship using those cranes, right? So break bulk and heavy lift, we do a lot of them. Ro-ro, I mean, primarily car carriers, but we also move a lot of cargo on ro-ro ships. These are large ships which are designed to be car carriers, but can also take static cargo on what we call Murphy trailers. And then the most interesting work is on semi-submersibles or deck carriers, where now some of the pieces we move would be 10, 15,000 tons single piece weight, where we fabricate large modules in fabrication yards and move the modules to the site and then basically do a plug and play. Primarily from a perspective where, if you need to, we did a large project in Kazakhstan a few years back. It was a $20 billion investment for one of the largest oil companies in the world. Temperature was an issue where they had extreme cold during the winter, so productivity is very low. And we need to also and the access to the location was difficult. The availability of labor was an issue. So we did a lot of fabrication in Asia, and then moved them on large ships, and then took them all to the site and installed and built the refinery up from the ground, right? So semi-submersibles come involved. Tug and barges are something that, especially for coastal voyages or even for long haul voyages, we have very powerful tugs which can tow an offshore module or an FPSO all the way from Asia to Europe or vice versa. So there's a lot of engineering support which is required on the sea transportation. And then we also do a lot of road and rail transportation on normal trailers, special equipment, low beds, and so on and so forth. And there are also self-propelled modular trailers which are required, where you can add modules onto the trailers, can be centrally controlled from using power packs, and then can have a large range of motion and can take significant large weights, and so on and so forth. So these are stuff where you will find opportunities to engage if you decide to choose a career in logistics. Now, again, just because I'm not taking a breath doesn't mean that I will not pause for a question. Anytime you have a question, feel free to ask. Yeah. All right. Going into, if you do decide to come into logistics, I've just listed few areas.
Cyril, can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll just ask the audience if there's any question as of now.
Okay.
Anybody wants to ask any question? Anything that has crossed your mind to break the monotony?
And look, there are no silly questions. Some of them may be new. If there are terms that you don't understand, or if you want a little bit for me to pause a little bit on some of them, please feel free to ask. Yeah.
Okay, sir, we'll continue. So in between, after every 5 minutes or when you pause, I'll ask the group again. Then, if there's any question, then we'll take the question then. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So now going into roles, and the reason why I've singled this out is uh, if somebody tells you that you can have a career in IT, you may not know where you fit in, right? So, and if I come and tell you that, look, you can figure out a career in logistics, you may not know where to start or which industry segment to look at. So, I thought I'll break it down into a few of the areas where you can look at. So, freight forwarding, where you remain asset light, but you make solutions for moving the freight. That's an area that's where I started in my career in logistics. So strongly recommend that as an opportunity. Shipper, anybody who has goods to ship, whether you're an exporter or an importer or a production company and so on and so forth, you would need to handle some shape or form of logistics. The more industrial you get in terms of large equipment, that's where, as a naval architect, you will have an opportunity to come in and add some value and show some engagement. EPC is what I do. Again, I have a naval architect from in Netherlands who handles all the ocean transportation requirements that I have for the group. So I have, he studied in TU Delft and he reports directly into me. So EPCs would have a lot of engagement. When I say EPC slash owners, so the oil companies and the mining company, they would all have requirements for naval architects, specifically to handle complicated logistics engagements. You can be a surveyor, like I mentioned earlier. Uh, you don't just do trial and error. Every time we move a ship and every time you lift something onto a ship or do a road transportation, there is an engineering thought which goes into it. There are documents which are produced, there are calculations which are made, there are approvals which are required, and so on and so forth. And the surveyor or the marine warranty surveyor would physically be available at the time of the operation to see whether everything is going as per plan and is following a certain methodology and so on and so forth. So that could be an area where you can also look into as a career. Chartering, I would say, is one of the most fascinating elements if you're interested in on a commercial engagement where you have a ship or a pool of ships. They may not be going in a set direction, and your job is to make sure that you reach out to clients who have cargo and then get their cargo and agree on a price and move it. Extremely fascinating if you're interested in on the commercial side of the story. You can do fleet management, which like the container ships or the break bulk ships or the oil tankers and so on and so forth. There would be opportunities for fleet management to make sure that the best practices in the industry are coming into your new building plans. They're coming into your operations, into the efficiencies, into the fuel consumption, and so on. So that's something that we can look at. Heavy haul and heavy lift. And again, I'm hoping that at some point of time you'll engage with one of our other classmates, Satish, who's based in Kochi and who has exceptional experience on the heavy haul and heavy lift when it comes to barging, when it comes to loadouts, and so on and so forth. That's a very fascinating engagement where you, as a naval architect, you actually bring your skills as a naval architect to find solutions to move odd shaped or extremely heavy cargo. So that's an area where you can focus a little bit on transport engineering and solutioning on that side. So between heavy haul and transport engineering, you'll see a lot of opportunities, and we'll make sure that you're engaging with some of our friends who are in that space, so that we can probably drill deeper into opportunities. Okay, let me pause again, Deepak, if you want to check if there are any other questions.
Yeah, any questions? Anybody so far? So what is the kind of ship shown in the picture?
Yeah, this is a normal break bulk ship or what we call a multi-purpose.
No, the question was not for you. Question was for the students. And what is the cargo being carried? So they are saying,
Okay.
Sir, I'm
Yeah.
Harideep. I think the cargo is offshore wind turbines.
Yeah, the cargo is blades for the windmills. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, and the type of ship.
I think it's a semi-submersible.
No, this is not. This would be a normal brick bulk ship because when it comes to semi-submersibles, we typically end up using when you have a lot of extremely heavy or extremely over-dimensioned cargo. The blades are something which normally get handled by ship's cranes, and we can see on the far end on the left there are cranes on the ship. So you use these cranes to lift them from the shore, put them on deck or under deck, and then lift them off at the port of discharge. So this would be what we call a heavy lift ship. So this particular ship has cranes, I think 2 by 450-ton cranes. So it has a combined lifting capacity of 900 tons. In fact, you have some of your seniors working with this shipping lines in their headquarters in Hamburg. So the last time I went to to meet the owners in their office, I met a couple of our juniors or your seniors there in that office doing engineering, and the owners were extremely appreciative of the ability of these people to find solutions for complex transportation projects. Right. All right. Any questions, or should we go to the?
you proceed.
All right. So I wanted to give you some names because look, and the reason why I'm doing this, when we were in our final year, the career path was either Mazagon Docks or Goa Shipyard or Cochin Shipyard. IRS used to be a sought after opportunity, and then there were some design consultancies which we would look at. But we had a very limited vision about what can we potentially be doing after we finish our education, and everybody was pretty much looking at the same pool of companies to go in, right? Now, since I spoke about few segments, I also thought it would be interesting for you to start reading up on some of these companies, and any of these companies. If you feel they're doing something interesting, you want to do more, you want to talk to any of these companies, I can always arrange that conversation. So even as part of this formal engagement for our Silver Jubilee, if you want to say, look, I want to have let's say an engineering lead for a shipping company talk to us about how they do their storage planning, or how they do their lifting planning, or how they do a loadout planning. I mean, I can get any of these people to come and spend some time with you during the course, or if you want to have a one-on-one, we can always talk about it. So I wanted to give some names for you to probably be aware. So in the EPCs, obviously I will put Fluor first, and we are the best. Bechtel is a large company. Technip, we also have a lot of our naval architects working in Technip. There is a company called Técnicas Reunidas, which is Spanish. JGC is Japanese. Toyota is Japanese. Hyundai, Korean. Petrofac is in the Middle East. Saipem, Kiewit. So these are some of the EPCs I've listed. And from the owners, I should have put Chevron first because Harish is on the call. So Chevron, Exxon, Total, ConocoPhillips, Woodside. These are all large oil and gas companies which do exploration, which do production, refining, and so on and so forth. On the chemicals, I've listed a couple of companies: Dow Chemicals, BASF, Eastman. They are some of the largest chemical companies. On the mining, I've put BHP, Rio Tinto, significantly large number of companies who are in that scale, who make these billions of dollars of investments every year and need somebody like us to run these projects. Pharma, I've just listed Lilly, but there are other companies like Novartis and so on and so forth, which do large pharma projects. From a freight forwarder's perspective, if you like logistics, if you want to get into logistics, I would strongly recommend that you start on the freight forwarding side, because you learn the ropes before you switch to a heavy hauler or an EPC or an owner if you want to stay in logistics. Doigro is where I started my career. I started with them in Singapore, and then I went to Bangkok. Then I came to Dubai. When they opened their office in India, I moved to Mumbai. And then at a later point of time, moved to Delhi. And then I quit, joined another freight forwarder called Kuehne+Nagel or KNN, which is on the list, back in Dubai before I joined Fluor. So some of the names, Stoigraph, DSV, and so on and so forth for you to look. And I'll share this presentation so that you can come back and ask me separate questions. Heavy haulers, Mammoth by far, Mammoth, Saran's Roll Group, these are the large ones for Geoli. They are the ones who physically move the cargo from the port of discharge or from a location to by road to a later location. So very, 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 very heavy on engineering concepts from a stability, from a safety, security, lashing perspective, and so on and so forth. And break bulk or the multi-purpose vessels, you'll have companies like Big Lift, Jumbo SAIL. These are the biggest. United Heavy Lift, where the picture I shown earlier, COSCO Triple Rope G2s, the specialized carriers like Boskalis, Roll Dog, COSCO and all, they have their own semi-submersible vessels, and there are certain shipments where you need to use one of these, either from an at-sea acceleration perspective or from a dimensional perspective or from the access to the final location perspective. This is a very, very specialized, very expensive transportations that you do with some of these carriers. Now, the other reason why I put some of these names on the list is also to tell you the opportunity which is out there. I mentioned that when I went to the UHL headquarters in Hamburg, we had at least two of our naval architects working there in that office, and when we met personally when I was there in the office and spent some time together. All the other companies that you see here have, in some shape or form, requirements for naval architects, but none of these would probably be on your, let's say, on your radar as a potential employer in the future, right? The reason why, let's say, if you decide to pursue a career in naval architecture, and let's say you say, look, I think I want to work on a break bulk side or on a semi-submersible side, right? The first thing you may want to do is try and have some familiarity about what these people do. Follow them on LinkedIn, go to their website, follow news on what they're doing, and be familiar with what they're doing, so that you can somehow be more prepared and more aware when you eventually get into a stage of an interview and so on and so forth. Any questions on these?
Yeah, well, there's a question.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm Ashish from the 47th batch.
Yeah.
So my question is, I've applied to some of these companies through LinkedIn, but from every time I've got a rejection. So is there something I would have, if you were in my shoes, how would you approach these companies to get an internship or for a placement? Because I've tried for an internship in several of these companies. It has not worked out for me, and our placement isn't coming soon. So is there a chance that I could do something different?
Look, excellent question. And which is where I would say, look, when we were in the 21st batch, we had a very limited pool of alumni who were coming up their ranks and so on and so forth. Now, when we look around, you're in the 47th batch. You have at least 42 batches of your seniors in different countries and different companies working at different levels, whether it's on engineering or decision making. A couple of our seniors are CEOs of the largest shipyards in India, right? So if there is the first thing I would advise all of you to do, whether you like the idea of social media or not, is to get active on LinkedIn. Create your account if you don't have one. Try and connect with everyone who's from the Department of Naval Architecture, who's passed out, your seniors, right? You take your time to build your network on LinkedIn. And I'll give you another simple example of a recent area where I personally utilize my connections on LinkedIn. So we moved to Houston a couple of years back. My wife has been a banker for all her life, and I have zero network on the banking industry here in Houston, right? So we really didn't know where to start looking, because a lot of, when she was applying through LinkedIn, she was getting rejections. So what we eventually ended up doing was, she would look at where the opportunities are, and if something comes up, so she had an opportunity with a small local Houston-based bank, and she would tell me, and I would look into my network on LinkedIn and find out if there is a person who could be a decision maker in that company, and whether that person is connected to anyone I know. And you can see your second degree connections on how you're connected. Then I would pick up the phone and say, look, I see that you're connected with so and so. Can you ask your friend to have a conversation with wife? She wants to just explore how things are working. We did the same thing for HSBC, where she's now employed, where one of my juniors from my B school, who I've met once in Dubai, but we are connected on LinkedIn, I called her and said, look, Priya is interested in terms of applying for an HSBC role here in Houston. Can you connect her to, and I gave her 3 names of people she was connected to. She immediately wrote to them. My wife had an interview. Within the next couple of months, she was in a job. So my advice to you would be, let's say, pick Mammoth, right? Look at Mammoth, identify few key people in Mammoth, figure out, if you're connected with me, you may be able to see that Cyril knows Jan Klein, he knows Robert Roos, and so on and so forth. And then you can ask me for an introduction. I can pick up the phone and talk to them and say, look, this boy is interested. Can you make sure that his CV is sent to the right location? Look, LinkedIn is an effective tool from an internship job perspective to identify opportunity, but if you apply through LinkedIn, the conversion rates are not that significant, right? So use LinkedIn for the data collection, but use your network to make sure that your CV gets to the right person. That makes sense?
Sir, because I was always hesitant to talk to people regarding
No,
can
you
you
should.
connect with these people, but your answer gave me a lot of confidence to. I think I'll surely be approaching you too, sir.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In any way I can help. Look, the only thing I normally tell people is, we can't be your placement coordinators, right? But when you come to us, or when you go to your network, be very specific, right? So look, I don't go to somebody and say, I'm interested in a job. Can you help me? No. You can come back and say, look, I'm interested in working on the heavy haul side. Do you have any connections in Mammoth Sarans or Roll Group? And then we can have a conversation, because then it becomes more meaningful. And I know I'm going to do a very specific task in terms of making sure that I take your CV, I send it to them. Obviously, we will not be able to guarantee a job, but then we can guarantee that your CV reaches the right person, and not just a mailbox or an AI tool which detects you even before somebody has seen your CV, right? So that is extremely important when you look at job hunting. And I'm happy to take a separate session or have a one-on-one with any of you if you want to go a little deeper into that. But good question. Appreciate asking that question. Right. Now, we normally say there is never a dull day in logistics. There would always be something which comes up. Every time you think, okay, now it's stability that you see in the market, everything is up and running, then you'll have COVID coming up, or you'll have a war coming up, or you'll have tariffs come up. Yeah. So there are a lot of things, or the Panama Canal dries up, or the Suez Canal gets blocked by a ship, which chokes the entire supply chain, and so on and so forth. New regulations come up around fuel and emissions, and so on and so forth. This is what makes our job fun, right? There is no, every second day, it's not a routine job where you wake up in the morning, you go to the office, you do pretty much the same thing you've done yesterday. No, every day is different. Every day the challenges which come in are different. Every day the opportunities which come in are different. The solutions you're able to engineer would be different, and so on and so forth. So we've seen during COVID, I don't know if any of you were following this, we were running a large LNG project in Canada during the peak of COVID, and the peak of shipping was during COVID. We had contract rates where we were supposed to pay $2,000 for a container from Asia from China to Canada, to the west coast of Canada. during COVID, the rates went so sky high that some of the shipments which were urgently required, we paid up to $20,000 for a container. That's when your relationships come into play, and at that point of time, schedule is more important than the cost. In the larger scheme of things, paying $20,000 or $100,000 or $20 million on getting the cargo to the site to meet a deadline is worthwhile, but you need to have the relationship to be able to find those solutions. So, look, take this from me. There are no 2 days which are the same in logistics. If you are on the exciting side of project logistics, so that's something that you may want to consider. Now, again, segueing into why do you want? I'm being a little conscious of the time. I still want to leave some time for questions. But this is from my experience. I've had a lot of growth, satisfaction, job satisfaction. What I'm doing right now in Fluor with the help of my team is we're doing a lot of things different from, okay, let me just, I need to find a solution. Let me ask somebody for a pricing, and then I just, manage that. No, we are creating solutions ourselves. So the opportunity to leave a legacy is significantly high. For me, one of the largest drivers when I joined was the ability to travel the world. My first starting was in Singapore, then I went to Bangkok, then I came to Dubai, and from Dubai I traveled the world to meet clients, to oversee operations, and so on and so forth. You appreciate cultural nuances. Sometimes I pick up calls from home, and I do team call with my team early in the morning at 6 Houston time. I'll have people from China, from Australia, from Europe, from UK, from Canada, from India, from all over the world dialing into those calls. And my family, my kids listen to them. And the way they speak, the way we communicate, the way they understand certain things, the way they articulate certain things, it's all very different. And you tend to get a lot of appreciation of the cultural nuances, appreciation of different cuisines, and so on and so forth. And again, while this is not an obvious choice for you to consider, it does, as a naval architect, this is one of the industries where if you walk around and say you are a naval architect, there is a certain weight which goes with this. For sure. So there are multiple reasons why you may want to consider a career in logistics, and also keep in mind, traditionally there's not been, with the exception of few colleges which have specialized courses on logistics, in the project logistics side, there is no set educational institute which churns out freight forwarders, for example, or chartering people, for example. Most of the people come and join the industry at some level and then branch out and then grow. Your growth trajectory, being a naval architect, if you are interested on the commercial side, if you're interested in terms of relationship management with clients, that can be significantly accelerated if you come into logistics. So just something to consider when you look at your career from a long-term perspective. Now, I want to pause here a little bit, and I ask myself, if I was sitting in the room 15 years ago, and if somebody would tell me, and if I could trust them on what should I be focusing on, other than obviously you need your grades and you need to be affable in communications and so on and so forth. But what are those few things which you need to focus on? And I would say some of them are things I've not focused on. The financial independence part. Look, I come from a very conservative family. We're based in Kottayam. Our both parents have been government employees. They've not been savvy when it comes to investments and so on and so forth, right? And to a certain extent, I think at some point of time we all believed, or the group in which I was moving around, we believed that stock market is for gamblers and we should not do that. We've heard about the stock market crash. We thought it's low IQ people who get into the stock market and so on and so forth. You need to start from day one. The moment you start earning an income, you need to keep a percentage away to invest either in stocks or in bonds or in ETFs and so on and so forth. And for you to be able to do that effectively, you need to probably also start reading. You need to listen to podcasts. I mean, I would recommend maybe a Motley Fool just to get an idea of what the terminologies are, which companies are doing what, how are the stock prices moving. There are a lot of tools available. So financial independence, for you to be financially independent by the time you get into your 40s, does not happen from the salary that you would have saved and kept in a savings account. So you need to start figuring out, where do I want? If I want to retire when I am in my 40s and do stuff which I enjoy doing, I need to have the financial independence. So focus on that, read up on that, start saving and start investing the day you start earning. Number one. Number two, focus on health and well-being. Now, look, for me, when I was growing up in school, and even when I came to Cochin University, going to the gym was associated with people who would be going out to beat up other people, and who would be who, let's say, were not the serious about a career and so on and so forth. It's only maybe 6 months back that I joined the gym, and I'm looking back and seeing the time I wasted not focusing on your personal health and well-being, right? So that's something that if you're physically active, fair enough, just make that as part of your routine. If you're not, don't wait till you are diabetic or till you get to a stage where you can't reverse certain things, right? Networking, extremely important. Look, you are within your right, and this is your right that you need to take, that the alumni that you have, you need to reach out, you need to find, network within your peers, network with your teachers, network with anyone. You meet anybody interesting, connect with them on LinkedIn, have interesting conversation, take a genuine interest in them, be genuine in everything that you do, and so on and so forth. That's what is going to help you grow in your career. You may be the best engineer, but if you're not seen, and if you don't have the soft skills, which is the next point to grow in the career, then you are missing out on a lot of things. So again, when it comes to soft skills, you are with a group of friends right now. You've known each other for the last 3-4 years. You trust each other. You're with your teachers again, who have only the interest to see you grow. This is the time for you to experiment. If you're scared of public speaking, get into public speaking in front of a comfortable audience, so that you know that you can do it more. Simple things like, let's say, dressing for success. You don't go into an interview without shaving, or without wearing odd clothes, or with the color combinations wrong, or wearing a red shirt and and a green trousers and black shoes, and so on. And so there are some of these soft skills and so on and so forth. You need to you need to figure out, learn, look around, experiment, so that you feel more natural talking to an audience that you don't know, and you feel confident articulating a position or a point in front of strangers, in front of clients, in front of peers, in front of your subordinates, and so on and so forth. So that's something that you need to focus on. IT, take an interest, if you have a passion in IT or not. You need to know how to make IT work. You need to know how to make IT work for you. Or when it comes to artificial intelligence, don't restrict yourself to just getting answers on ChatGPT or Google. Try and see how can AI work for you. Read up, understand the terminologies, figure out what happens, and so on and so forth. Work ethics, extremely important. You can get into a job, but what keeps you in a job and what grows you in a job is the work ethics you bring to the table. How diligent are you in terms of completing your work? How much are you willing to go the extra mile to do a great job instead of just a job, and so on and so forth. And the mutual respect is something that should come. You don't get respect unless you give respect. Whether you're talking to a janitor or to a managing director, if you're able to have the same level of respect to everybody who's around you and you engage, you will see that respect come back and helping you at some point of time. I mentioned general awareness. Look, again, going back to, you will all soon be sitting in interviews with companies. Do not walk into an interview room and ask them what they're doing. Be prepared. You need to, and if you're talking to a survey company or a shipyard, read up. It's everything. Today there is no excuse that you don't know or you've not studied. If any interviewer would look at your lack of awareness as a sign of disrespect, because if you wanted to know what Cochin Shipyard is doing, it would have taken you 5 minutes to figure out. If an interviewer sees you as aware that you've done your reading and you're asking questions, you want to know about the aircraft carrier which is constructed, you bring this into conversation, they will feel that, okay, this is a guy who's at least, or a person who's at least taken an effort to know what I'm doing, is asking more intelligent questions rather than just being blank and telling me about what they want to, that they want a job. That's immediately important. And last but not least, I would say you need to build credibility, and credibility comes from different sides, right? One, you need to be honest and transparent and make sure that your integrity is there. Look, in our job, there are so many opportunities where you can do stuff and nobody will come to know. You can make yourself rich on the back of a job that you have, but you do it once, then you've lost all your credibility. So it's extremely important to bring integrity to the forefront and have that credibility and build that credibility. And that takes a lot of restraint, a lot of hard work to make sure that people want to deal with you because you're a credible person, and then because you're a subject matter expert, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to give some of these. Again, I'm not an expert on financials or IT, or I mean even on the personal health and so on and so forth. But I'm happy to to tell you where you may want to focus on. All right, so we've got 5 minutes left. That was my last slide. But look, any questions, doesn't need to be on logistics. Any questions where you feel I can answer? And look, what is the worst thing that can happen? I would say I don't know, and there would be a lot of things I won't know. But anything that I know, I'm happy to share with you.
Yeah, Cyril, don't worry about that. They are already used to me saying I don't know many times to them when I taught them. So
I would imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you just take them through your journey?
Yeah.
From CUSAT days, maybe one anecdote from your CAT preparation, then your stint in Goa, and that thing, and some experience here and there, just through your journey, so that they can identify with your thing, why you shifted from DOIGRO to Fluor,
right,
without stretching it too much.
Yeah. So look, like I said, I knew I wanted to. I knew I wouldn't shine in naval architecture, and I was asking myself continuously. I've invested 5 years, and I'm telling myself that I don't want to be a naval architect. It doesn't sound good, but I said, look, I would rather be happy than be miserable. So which is why I went into my MBA. And while I was giving CAT, without knowing whether I'll get in or not, then I did a couple of months in Goa and in Maharashtra teaching naval architecture, which is when I was remembering all my teachers very fondly, and that is when a lot of concepts came to me when you have to explain it to somebody else, right? So after my MBA, I joined this German freight forwarding company called DOIGRO. They had something called the DOIGRO Most Promising Program, which was a management training program. And that came through a friend of mine whose uncle was working there, who said, look, I'm looking at recruiting somebody in the Middle East in this particular program. I said, look, sign me up. I thought, he said he was in shipping, and I thought, the first time, I still remember when I interviewed with him, I said, look, if you want somebody in shipping, I'm your guy. I'm a naval architect. I just finished my MBA. In my mind, I was supposed to sell ships. I said, look, I at least understand the terminology. He said, man, this has nothing to do with selling ships. It's more about cargo movement. I had no idea what logistics was, and so on and so forth. So it took us a while to get a little. But once I joined DOIGRO, I spent a lot of time networking, getting involved, traveling meeting people, hearing insights, and so on and so forth. I was fortunate to have some good mentors who took me under their wings, taught me everything that they knew, took me around for client meetings, and so on and so forth. And we would go out for drinks multiple times, and do stuff, travel together, and so on and so forth. So Doigro, I mean, I could grow fairly quickly within Doigro. A lot of clients used to like working with me because I would walk into their office and I give them market intelligence. I would tell them what we expect the market to happen in the market, and wherein they were used to most of the freight forwarders giving them just a rate or coming into the office and saying, "What do you have? Can I just give you a price?" and so on and so forth. So from Doigro, I quit, joined. I came back to the Middle East from India, joined Kuehne+Nagel Ibracom, where I was focused on Central Asia and Middle East. And I was, look, the Fluor opportunity, and which again goes back to the power of networking. My current boss, he sent me a message on LinkedIn. I said, I'm in Dubai on so and so date. Can we meet? And I thought he wanted me to offer our logistic services from Kuehne+Nagel to him. So I went and met him with a full sales hat on, saying that, look, Vic, I know you're coming up with a refinery in Kuwait. And I read up on what to do, how is customs done, what are the restrictions there, what are the dimensions which can move. I was fully prepared with my sales mode and said, look, I don't want you to give me your services, I want to employ you. And I'm meeting him for the first time. So if you've been a skeptic, I am a living example, both from my perspective, from my wife's employment, what I explained earlier, that LinkedIn works, but not in the way. Don't think LinkedIn is going to give you a job by clicking apply on a link. But if you use LinkedIn correctly, and if you're visible, and if you contribute content, and if you're seen as somebody who's eager to learn, and so on and so forth, LinkedIn can be an extremely tool. Going forward, when you start your job search, you would need to have a presence on LinkedIn. Any new CV which comes to us, if you're not on LinkedIn, you don't exist, right? So that's important. Start building it now if you're not already done. Yeah, and then so Fluor, I joined back in 2015. I was in Dubai with Fluor for 8 years, and a couple of years back moved to Houston, which is where we are based out of right now. So yeah, I've gone with the flow. You would have realized by now that I've not been clear about, okay, did I know when I was in your shoes where I would end up? I had no idea. Did I know if I would get into MBA? I didn't know. Did I know I would end up in logistics? I didn't know. Till the date I did my interview, I was not even aware of the opportunities on this side, because it's not something which came on my radar, right? So use this opportunity now to talk to different people. We have people doing large scale engineering work and so on and so forth. Figure out where you may want to fit in, right? I mean, sometimes money may be the driver, sometimes the job may be the driver, the work content would be the driver, but use that network to make sure that you get the answers that you need.
Okay, Cyril, thanks. Although Cyril may appear as superhuman, but he is one amongst us. He was one like you, and he knows Malayalam.
Yes.
And he knows German also. So you can pose your questions in English or Malayalam as convenient to you. Malayalam അറിയാലോ അല്ലേ നിനക്ക്? അച്ചായന്റെ മലയാളത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞാൽ മതി.
I was not, I didn't know whether the group, I thought Navy I didn't want to disadvantage them. But feel free to ask. I mean, again, look, Deepak can give you my number if somebody wants to have a conversation. I will find time to talk. If you have a genuine question, if you come prepared, we'll help. And so would anybody from our batch, or most of the people from your seniors. ഇവരെല്ലാവരും ആർക്കെങ്കിലും എന്തെങ്കിലും ആവശ്യം ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഹെൽപ്പ് ചെയ്യാൻ വില്ലിംഗ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആൾക്കാരാണ്. But don't confuse that willingness to help with the right to don't move your job hunt to somebody else's responsibility, right? Use that network. ആ നെറ്റ്വർക്ക് നിങ്ങൾക്കൊന്ന് കറക്റ്റ് ആൾക്കാരെ ഇൻട്രൊഡ്യൂസ് ചെയ്യാനും CV എത്തിക്കാനും അതിനൊക്കെ you need to use. അപ്പം feel free to reach out.
Yeah, Cyril, this is Sadish from batch 13. So thank you very much. At this time of the day in Houston, you are speaking to us. This Campus to Career initiative is a novel idea from your batch. And I was speaking to Deepak, he started on 21st.
Right.
With the identity of 21st batch, very strong.
Right. And we hope this continues, sir.
Yeah. And I'm sure from your talk, students would have learned not just on APC, but also on how to make a good presentation, good online talk, how to speak on. A lot of takeaways are there. And I hope students must have learned a lot how to give a good presentation, how to speak confidently. And thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. And I appreciate you sitting in during your busy day.
No, I was there from the beginning. I was watching in my phone.
I saw your comment.
And I came.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. I'm Harideep from 47th batch. So you'd been in Goa for a while before you did your MBA.
Yeah.
So how did you feel you wanted to do your MBA?
Yeah. So look, MBA was by process of elimination, right? So so my engagement with Anchorage, the Arts Fest, and so on. So I used to love going for these sponsorship things and organizing this. I thought my strength was more in terms of being either on the commercial side or a people-facing side rather than being behind a computer, right? So that's a determination which I made when I was there on campus, and so I didn't go into the job market immediately after campus. So I said I'm going to give a shot for my MBA because when I asked people, they said, look, if you clear CAT and get into one of the good B schools, then you have a different career path, right? So that's how I decided to go into MBA. The Goa thing was primarily okay. I gave my CAT exam, waiting for results. I think I had like two or 4 months before the results came and the interview started. So again, the networking, what I mentioned, I spoke to a few friends. I said, look, I don't want to sit home and do nothing. I want to do something, but I don't want to do, because I don't know if I'll get into an MBA course this year or I need to prepare again. So I said, I want a job where I can, if I need to spend a little bit of time to prepare. So somebody called me from Goa, I think one of our seniors, and there was an opening in a company in a college called IMS. So I went, I interviewed, I started the same day. And then a couple of months later, they wanted me to to become permanent. I said, look, at that point of time, I didn't know my results. I didn't know whether I would get an MBA or not. But I told them, look, I need to be open and transparent. I will leave if I get into a B school, but if I don't, I am happy. But they wanted to get somebody permanent. So I left, and after 2 months, and I got in one of my seniors into that role because I knew he was looking for a job. And then I went into the Stolani Maritime Institute in Pune. So this was more stopgap arrangement till I got my MBA, but I really enjoyed the time teaching, and I think I like teaching. Hopefully, at some point of time, I would be able to come back to academy and spend some time teaching.
Just to clarify or elaborate, Cyril, in 2001, when we graduated, there were only 4 campus placements. Correct me if I'm wrong. 2 were in Infosys, 2 were in TCS. Correct?
Yeah, correct.
From my batch, there were only 4 campus placements, 2 in TCS and 2 in Infosys. And all 4 of them joined, but then eventually they all left. But other than that, nobody got a job.
US Software, Deepak.
US Software, Harish.
Yeah.
So with that context, why he took up a job there, or, most people were jobless. Then they had gone to Bombay and to Surat, and they were trying to meet people and ask them for a job. Can you give me a job, etc.
But you guys need to have that comfort that you have a safety net with your seniors, right? I've done that. I've seen my juniors do it. I've seen my seniors do it. You are, this is a network you should tap into. Yeah, but then be prepared and have the right attitude to make sure that you're building a career based on credibility and hard work, and then it will not fail. Then success and money that'll come after you.
Sir,
Yeah.
my name is Edwin. I'm
Yeah.
current final year.
Yeah.
From my point of view, I don't see my career in logistics immediately after my college. But
Yeah.
if I want to pursue a career in logistics, after being placed first in most probably a technical, like something more stickier to technical,
Yeah.
and pure naval architecture.
Yeah.
At what point or what all skills should I uh, look or imbibe in myself to come into that logistics? And if I don't want to be a guy who is more into human relation or sales pitch, are there any jobs that are still technical but in this logistic field?
Yeah, so look, great question, right? Here's my personal take. Some people say that you can shift industries at any point of time, but once you get a little senior in a particular role or a specialist in a particular role, then it's not easy for you to completely switch and do something random and start from the bottom, right? So, the first 3-4 years of a career is when you need to try and experiment a little bit, and people have ridiculed Narayana Murthy when he said something to this effect, but I'm going to say that nevertheless. First 3-4 years of your career should be built in terms of figuring out where you want to be in, right? And part of it is going to come from offering to do stuff for others, just for you to figure out what you're interested in. Now, if your interest is in doing engineering, and creating those solutions, that's where you need to focus on. Within that engagement, try and see within the company that you're working with, if there's a group which does offshore structural engineering, or mooring design, or loadout in engineering and so on. Try and get involved in all these things. Try and volunteer to take over some jobs, or try and sit or try and talk to people during a coffee break, figure out what they're doing and how they're doing, and what they're interested in. And that is completely up to you in terms of how you figure out what you want to do by knowing what other people are doing, right? So do that networking, do that engagement whenever you can. And then if you want to come into logistics at some point of time from a technical side, that was the last question. Look, all ships would need somebody to make a stowage plan. All ships would need somebody to make a lifting plan. All ships would need to calculate the stability and so on. So a lot of that is software based, but you still need to, all the shipping lines would need to employ naval architects to do this work. That's not a client facing job. It's the commercial people who would, as part of the package or their bid package or their proposals, would come to you, say, look, this is the cargo details. I need to have a lifting plan and a stowage plan and a lashing plan and stability calculations and so on and so forth. So you will provide them. A lot of opportunities to get creative there, even if you're on the technical side. So you don't need to necessarily be commercials, and don't go into a client facing role if you're not interested in, if that's not your passion, right? You need to try and find a niche where you will excel.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Ed.
Sir, Ashish again. So this time, my first introduction to you was through LinkedIn, sir. I was browsing the Break Bulk 2025 page, and LinkedIn recommended me to you. So I went to your profile, I checked your profile, saw your post, and I understood that you're a important figure in the logistic industry. So I saw your career path. I understood that it's quite significantly faster than an average engineers or an average guy's career. Your growth was very significantly faster. So what conscious decisions helped you to grow that fast? I know obviously networking is one of them. Other than that, and also as Deepak sir mentioned, your being a born leader also could have helped you. But what other conscious decision have you made, sir, to reach where you are and what you are?
So again, good question, great question. In fact, so look, for me, networking was the key, right? And we've had this very interesting conversation recently with few people. Look, if I have somebody from my network who comes to Houston, I would want to meet them, go out, have a drink. Sometimes they come over, and so on. And some of these people, look, I may not need any of these people in my life. I may not even meet any of these people again in my life. But if you belong to the family, now you are family. My B school people are family. The juniors, they are family, right? I would not say no to spending time with any of those. So we've had this interesting conversation on why I'm doing this, and I said, look, my seniors have done that for me. I used to have a guy from our first batch, Chaco sir, used to be in Bangalore. Right? So my sister lived in Bangalore, but every time I would go to Bangalore, I would first go to Chaco sir's place, have a drink, and he was the first batch, 20 years senior to me. So I would go to his place, have a drink with him and his wife, have dinner, and then go see my sister and sleep overnight there. So networking helped, but networking in chamber, you also need to make sure that the person who's willing to spend time for you or to guide you get something in return. And obviously, it's not a financial compensation, but you need to show that commitment and volunteer to help out on something. And the mentor I had when I started my career was Klaus Behrmann. He was a German guy, not live anymore. But Klaus and I, the first time I met, we had a few drinks, and Klaus said, I'm going to take you as my apprentice, and I'm going to be a sorcerer. And then he took me under. He would drag me into client meetings. I would do a lot of background work with him, for the bits we were preparing, and so on. And so the networking is a very, very important component. The second element, I would say, again, would be your preparedness. I would not go into a meeting and try and wing it. It doesn't matter who I'm meeting. If I'm meeting a subcontractor or a client or a peer, if I am going into a meeting, I would make sure that I do my research. I read up. I know what they're doing. I know how I can contribute. I speculate what I can expect, and so on and so forth. And that makes conversations very interesting. I try and be on time. Doesn't matter who I'm meeting. If I have a meeting which starts at 9 a.m., I will be there at 8:59. Doesn't matter. And for whatever reason, if I need to overshoot a meeting which I'm doing, I will personally send a message at least a couple of minutes earlier that I am running late, and I would come back and apologize. Right? And then look, hard work. There is no substitute for hard work. So now that I'm in Houston, and I always, when I talk to my friends who are in India and the Middle East and so on and so forth, I tell them how lucky they are. You have help, you have access to a lot of things. Healthcare is exceptional, and so on and so forth. US may be something a lot of people look forward to. But look, I'll tell you how my day looks like. I wake up at 4 every day. Every day I get up at 4. I am out of the door by 5:30. At 6, I'm in the office, and I start my calls with my Chinese colleagues, India colleagues, and so on. So I try and leave in the afternoon, maybe around 4 or 5. But look, you don't have domestic help here. You don't have cooks coming in and cooking your food. You can't order in every day like you can in India. Right, so your weekends are consumed with loading the dishwasher, ironing, doing the laundry, cooking for the week, and so on and so forth. So, you need to put in that hard work for your family. You need to put that hard work for your career, and you need to put some hard work for your personal gratification as well. That that the time you're spending doing something you like doing is time which will give you some benefits at some point of time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right. So look.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Hi.
My name is Mohammed Sadat. I am from the final year batch.
Yeah.
Great speech. Thank you for the great speech, sir. I know it's late, but I have one question.
Yes.
I'm interested in doing my further studies, like even higher studies. Can you tell me if it's any important, like any significance in doing that? Like, is it worth doing 2 years of my work experience on investing it on my higher education? Or like
100%.
in general, any information you can give me on that,
Look,
on your experience.
Look, again, thanks for asking this. I had this conversation with my father when I said, look, how about I work for a couple of years and then I'll go for higher study? Look, in my family, I'm the only non-PhD. Both my parents have PhDs. My sister has a PhD. I'm the only non-PhD in the family, right? So I told my father, look, all my friends are going to work. So far, I've always wanted to have my own financial independence and salaries and so on. How about I work in a company for a couple of years and then I'll go for higher studies? And my father told me at that point in time, you won't, right? Because you spend a couple of years, you'll get your promotion. You don't want to quit at that point of time because you think you spend another year, you may get another promotion, and then your money suddenly starts. When you start at whatever number you've earned 20% more, you know that if you hang around, you'll get another 30%. He said, you will get drawn into this. So he was very clear. I've supported you so far. I'll support you for another couple of years. But finish that in a stretch was my advice, my dad's advice to me, and it in my case it worked. Look, my position would be if you can finish your studies at one stretch, unless you are very clear that I want to study in this particular university for this course, where a prerequisite to increase your chances would be a couple of years of work experience. And if you have that clarity that I'm going to work in a specific profile for a couple of years so that I get here, which is my goal, that's a different concept. But if you're thinking that I need to do a master's, I would say do it now if you can, without waiting for to figure out. Because then you start looking at the opportunity cost. Should I stay back and sacrifice the salary and the growth I have with this company? I like it here. I have made friends. I think I like this girl and I may want to marry her. So now I'll just hang around here for the rest of my life, right? So there are a lot of dynamics come in. There's a stretch and lethargy creeps in. I still remember when the day we left, I looked at Deepak and Nair and the Navy guys and said, look, I'm out of here. We are in a free world. We don't need to study anymore. You guys still need to go to IIT Delhi and do your masters. And little did I know that a few months down the line, I would be doing my MBA and then probably going through a little bit more rigor than these guys were going through. But look, my advice is finish it off if you can in the same stretch.
Okay, sir. Thanks so much.
Sir, I'm Manuel Matthew from 47th Batch. Hope you're doing well, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, actually, right now we discussed about higher studies. So, from what I understand, higher studies are expensive, quite expensive. So, sir, are you aware of any kind of scholarship or sponsorship provided by any sorts of company, or the company you are working in, are they providing any sorts of sponsorship for the aspirants or students who are looking into like studying, especially MBA?
Look, no, for MBA, you'll probably not get a lot of scholarships from anywhere unless you're working with a company and the company is sponsoring you to do an MBA, which is not something that typically happens before you spend the next number of years with that company. So most of the corporate funding on sponsorships would be for employees or children of employees, and most of the companies, at least in the US, would have that. For MBA, look, you need to look at this as an investment. So, which is why two things matter. One, the university you go into. You can do a very expensive MBA which doesn't give you the return on investment, or you can do a great MBA without spending through your nose. My personal position is your B schools in India more difficult to get in than US B schools. But try and get into any of the IIMs or one of the top 10, 15 B schools. It doesn't matter what the fees they charge, you will be able to recover this money fairly quickly. Now, doing an MBA overseas, I can give you the context of US. US, you will not be able to straight away come into the MBA unless you have some relevant work experience somewhere. And US, any education in US, you need to seriously ask yourself what your return on investment calculation would look like. These are expensive, exorbitantly expensive. And especially with the visa environment right now, where you don't know whether you'll be able to continue working in the US after you finish your education, you need to think twice before going overseas. So my recommendation at this point of time would be either do a trade P school in India or work for a couple of years if you want to save up a little bit, try and see if your employer would sponsor or fund your B school education or your higher studies, and then figure out if you want to go overseas, whether it's in Europe or US or in Asia, for higher education, which is partially funded.
Okay, sir. Thank you. And actually, sir, so from what I've seen, you have worked on India, Middle East, and right now you are working at US, and I think you have done your management training in Southeast Asia. So I would like to get your insights on the lifestyle and the work culture on these regions, and like how is it generally working there and living there?
Again, good question. Look, here's my take on this. India, what I've seen as a work culture in India, and I'm more talking about, not specific to naval architecture, but more talking about FMCG, banking, and so on and so forth, where my B school friends are working. Very toxic environment in most cases, where there is somehow a feeling that if you have people reporting into you, you own them. And that's a very, very toxic culture. In the US, my boss doesn't ask me if I'm working from home or coming to the office or leaving early or so on. There's a lot of freedom. I don't get a call on the weekend saying that, look, I need to do this. Can you just stop what you're doing and get this done to me? Mostly in Europe, US, and in the Western world, there is a lot more focus on personal boundaries and not encroaching into personal boundaries. Wherein in India, I've seen that's a little fuzzy in terms of that boundary. And I've seen people call up their colleagues at midnight and say, I want this report tomorrow. And it's apparently very common. Look, as somebody who gets into the to the industry, while you want to network and volunteer to do stuff, you also need to be able to stand up for yourself, articulate, and draw your boundaries and say, I'm sorry, I can do that only tomorrow because I'm now with my personal time. That's perfectly okay to say. And if somebody doesn't like you, you are with the wrong company, with the wrong boss, or with the wrong team. Okay? So there's a fine line on how you navigate. Southeast Asia, you'll find in Singapore of late, I've heard good things. I mean, Singapore is a great city to live in, don't get me wrong. But certain countries give preference to certain nationalities or certain ethnicities. So you need to figure out culturally, do you fit in? Culturally, do you fit into that country? Do you fit into that organization? Do you fit into that group that you're going to, and so on and so on. So there's some of those investigations that you need to do through your network.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, hello.
Yeah.
In like, I do realize the life we live is a result of choices we make. But at some point of time, do you ever thought like this decision I could have made better, or any decision that you think that was mistake, or I could have had a chance to do it even better, like anything at all?
All the time, you can look back and say, if I had done this differently at this point of time, things would have been different. So look, I go through this pretty much all the time. But for me, what I've told myself is that I would refuse to be bogged down by the past. If something has happened, I know that I can't go back in the past and change it, right? So I would try and, let's say, change things into the future, but I refuse to tell myself and to get upset with myself or with somebody else for something which happened in the past. So look, my position would be, and you will face these situations. You will tell yourself that I should have done so and so, and instead of feeling sorry for yourself and withdrawing into a shell, that would be a good cue for you to say, Now I don't want to repeat the mistake I've done in the past, and I want to correct myself, and I want to do something different now. So always look into the future, not into the past. Very important thing.
Actually, my question was like mistakes that we might make in our journey. Like if I'm choosing a like in my professional career that like doing a master's at a wrong point of time, like in something like that. The whole point is to like communicate our to learn from your career experiences the
Right.
choices which we can make, like we can do it better in our lives, so
Yeah.
something like that.
So look, I don't want to give a blanket answer here because I don't know some of the context, but the one thing I kind of look back and say I've not done a great job, despite networking with a lot of people, is I've somehow been hesitant or been lazy in terms of investigating what I may want to do. So look, simple example. While I love what I'm doing in logistics, one of the single biggest regrets I have is when I was in B school. I had this Professor Sanjay Bakshi who would take a course he was a finance professor, but he would take a course on business valuation and stock evaluations and so on and so forth. Everybody would flock into the course, and I said, "Look, I have no interest in finance, and I didn't want to." Single biggest mistake. I've seen after that course, and look, this was in 2004 when Sensex it was a big news that Sensex was getting into 8,000, right? If I had taken that initiative to learn more on things which I was not first nature for me, right? So finance was not first nature for me. Generally, your physical wellness was not first nature for me, and I ignored all these things. And if I could go back, I would start investing at that point of time. I would start reading up at that point of time. I would start going to a gym and taking care of my health so that I wouldn't turn diabetic at an early age and so on and so. So there would be a lot of regrets, but at the age of 45, I said, look, I've lost every time I think about investing. I would say it's too late. The market is already at the high. So now I've finally started. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read up. I talk to friends. I figure out I'm not actively putting all my money into the stock market, but I'm starting to take baby steps. The reason why I said you may want to start early is because if you start where you are, by the time you reach where I am, you probably won't need a primary income to sustain the lifestyle that you have. Right? So again, long story short, don't look back and regret. Look back, learn, and then see what you can do today to make a difference tomorrow, so that you're not going to tomorrow and looking back and say, hey, I should have done that yesterday.
So myself Shane, and
yeah.
While I was browsing I have been interested in doing in my MBA, and while I was searching for the universities that offer MBA, I came across IGNOU.
Yeah.
So Indira Gandhi. That is an open distance learning. So my question is, will it be any different if I'm taking a full-time course or this one? So I'm trying to choose this one because so that I can juggle between my work and if I'm my studies. So I wanted to ask is that if it is going to be any less valuable than a full-time course.
So it will be less valuable, whichever way you look at it. And let me try and put this in perspective. You need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of your MBA? Is it the knowledge or is it the degree? Or is it the career, right? So you need to define that. If you want to understand how certain things work, maybe an open university with some of the remote courses, that would be an option for you to get a general understanding of how things work. An IGNOU certificate, having an MBA would not give you significant benefits from a career progression perspective. And I'll tell you why. In a full-time course, you're with your peers who've gone through the exams, who've come to the same place. who want to grow, who are competitive. You deal with them. You learn a lot with them. You do case studies together. Your biggest learning is from your peers and the teachers there. Number one. Number two, for me, when I look back at my MBI days, I mean, I forgot everything which I learned during my B school, to be honest, right? But what I've retained for the last 20 odd years is the relationships I've built with my friends on campus. And we still, my juniors, my seniors. One of my roommates is now the managing director of Nestle in Singapore. I've got CEOs and founders and very senior people in different parts of the world. From that network, you don't get from an open course, and that's what you want when you eventually may need some help, or you would need to get something done, and you don't have somebody in your network. You need to tap into that network, and that doesn't come from an open university. Just knowledge to a certain extent that helps. Career network, that doesn't help. So I would always recommend a full-time course in a good university.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I'm Manuel once again. Sir, actually, from what I've heard from our seniors and all, while we get placed, we are mostly placed to management positions, more to technical side, like project manager and all. But if we look from a commercial point of view, and when I hear about logistic, I mostly associate it with business management, and mostly kind of office job that I'm figuring out, or I thought of it like that. So, and the most interaction we have will be with the clients that we are working with. But from what you're saying, I am understanding that we will have a kind of exposure inside also, like on board also. So, sir, can you please give some insights on that, and can you please share some of your on-board experiences?
Right. So look, let me start with my freight forwarding. When I was in Doigro, I mean, I started with an office job because I had to figure out how things work, what are the paperworks, because I didn't want to go into a client's office and say something which would give them the impression that I don't know what I'm talking about. So there was obviously some learning curve which I had to go through. But once I chose to be in business development when I started with Doigro. So I would be in client meetings pretty much most of let's say I would at least meet a couple of clients every day, and then come back and then hand over do my quotations and hand over it to the operations and still track what's happening and so on and so forth. I would go to the ports when I have a ship coming in. I would go fly out to another country if I'm loading cargo from there. I would constantly be on the road, and this is what I enjoyed doing, right? Once I joined Fluor, I had to take a conscious call to, when I was based in Dubai, I was traveling all around because, we had help at home. So if I had to meet a client in China, I would just take the next flight and go. I had pretty much my visas done for most of the countries. If I had a client meeting in Europe, or if I needed to go to a site in the US, I would just go, right? After I moved to Houston, I've cut down on my travel. So I'm spending more time in the office, where sometimes I'm meeting with shipping lines and freight forwarders, and I'm getting pulled into meetings with when clients come to the office. I'm sitting in strategy meetings when we are bidding for a new project. I'm giving market intelligence to our CEO's office when they're worried about logistics and the impacts and so on and so. So there's a lot of things, and I'm taking care of the staffing. I'm making sure that everybody's employed in my group. I'm making sure that when somebody is finishing a project, I'm finding a new project for them. I'm socialized. So there's a lot of that engagement that I do. But every time I get an opportunity to go out to a port to smell the salt in the air, I go. I mean, that's what I love doing. But I've not sailed on board, if that was your question. I've not done, let's say, a sailing career so far.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, sir. I'm Akshay from the 47th batch. So I'm the current SNAS editor of Shipstonic. So I was just curious about your experience during your time as the SNAS editor, or any advice you could give me as you are just about to begin our sponsorship calls for the latest edition. So just
Yeah.
wanted to know how you experience.
Yeah, look, our SaaS edition was a little different because in 2001 was the Silver Jubilee celebrations for the department, right? So the department turned 25, and ours was the Silver Jubilee edition okay, it was not the 25th edition of the Ship's Technic, but I think we were the 17th edition, but during the Silver Jubilee year. So we had a large technical conference called Smart 2000, and then Ship's Technic was also released around that. I don't know if the format has changed, but when we were doing that, the format was very clear. We knew who were the regular sponsors. Every time the third years and the second years would go for their internship in Bombay, Goa, so on and so forth, or to the Middle East, they would carry the brochure with them and they would come back with a check. That's how it used to work. I think you need to probably continue that as well. The only thing I would say is traditionally Ship's Technic, and look, I've not read nor would I understand the last few editions, but traditionally it has been focused on design and so on and so forth. You may want to also try and see if you can branch out and maybe identify a real life problem which somebody from our alumni or somebody from our extended network is solving, and get a paper so that the reach of Ship's Technic is expanded beyond people who are consuming Ship's Technic just for the educational awareness, and more in terms of an ideation and brainstorming of new ideas, right? So pick and probably I'm not sure if it's too late to do that, but pick a couple of industries. Pick the data center industry. Is somebody researching on building data centers which are extremely power intensive, which need a lot of cooling and again additional power? Can you build data centers in all these ships which are going for scrapping? Can you build data centers in submarine conditions? Talk about something which is related to AI, but not very superficial. Talk about a concept development. Maybe somebody's doing that research. Talk about propeller optimization, or the new marine cargo fuel regulations which are there, so that you appeal to the ship owners and the shipbuilding side and so on and so forth. And then over a period of time, you can make sure that the journal reaches more industries and not just our group of naval architects. And then that helps in better visibility, that helps in getting sponsorship, more sponsorship, that helps in diversifying the articles and so on and so forth. So you can get very, very creative in that role. And yeah, you have a large network to tap into right now. And I would say just use that.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. My name is Mahima. So after this discussion, I'm sure some of us might be interested in joining logistics sector. So my question is that what are the key changes or advancement or practices that you have seen over the past years that you think will impact the future of logistic industries?
A great question, Mahima. I mean, logistics typically has been considered a very an industry segment which lags behind in innovation, right? So we were even from a digitalization perspective, logistics was probably not the first one to jump into a large-scale digitalization. Wherein, if you look at the documentation which happens on the logistics side and the number of emails and transactions which happen, that should have been one of the prime cases for digitalization, right? So I would say over the next few years there would be a lot more AI engagement coming into logistics and changing the way logistics fundamentally works, whether it's on workflow automation or paperwork reduction, or getting aggregating the information, analytics, and so on and so. The AI will play a large role in logistics, but the reason why I was pushing a little bit more on project logistics is not something which AI can take over easily, because it's not It's not based on very simple, straightforward logic. I give you an example. Right now, we are handling a large project in Fort Saskatchewan in Canada. I've got cargo coming from everywhere. The land location is closer to Vancouver, but there are so many considerations which need to go into the equation. There is limitations in terms of the dimensions which can go via Vancouver. So anything which is heavier or more wider or taller than a certain, let's say 5 meters, I need to bring it through Houston and truck all the way up to Vancouver. A single transport for me could be as costly as $2 million from Houston to the site, right? So when I'm planning to bring all these materials from all different places, some of the materials I'll bring it to Vancouver, some of them I'll bring it to Houston, some of them I'll take it to the Canadian West Coast, East Coast into Duluth and Thunder Bay and Montreal and so on and so forth. So planning all these complex scenarios, I can use AI for some of those, but you can't expect AI to come up with all these solutions and optimize in project logic. So I would say the routine and the mundane part of logistics jobs will get eaten by AI. So your documentation, the release, and so on and so forth. But the more interesting and challenging part, which requires expertise and intelligence on, you need to know what can. So if I've done shipments from Vancouver, I already know what can go from Vancouver. I already know where I have a dimensional restrictions. But if you go on the internet and search, you will not find clarity on what those are. And for AI to work, it needs to have that information somewhere. The Department of Transport doesn't issue the permit and put them on internet, so you can't really make up. You need to have the subject matter expertise, or you need to know somebody who is a subject matter expert who is in your network that you can tap into, and that's how you make your decisions, right? So there will be changes, but I'm convinced that you would be safer in logistics than maybe in a legal or financial advising career. I would say you would be safer in logistics.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. With this, we are winding up the Q&A session, sir. We had a great time chatting with you, sir. Actually, I think it is the first time this much question has popped up in a interactive session by a singular batch. So thank you so much for like your time and effort for this event. So SNAS has prepared a small token of gratitude, sir, for you. So I know it's very late over there, and we appreciate your time and effort for that. Hello. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate that. And look, I would say connect with me on LinkedIn. The moment I see Cochin University Naval Architecture, I would always accept. And I'm happy to have discussions one-on-one, or Deepak can facilitate another call if you want to do something. Just let me know how we can help, not just me, but as a group, as my batch, as an extended group. We can always connect you to somebody who can help you at some point of time. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Sir, now I will pass the mic to Deepak, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you once again, Cyril, for the late night activity. Number two, thank you for the students, especially of the 47th batch, for staying awake and listening to the whole presentation. Thank you, Cyril, for setting the tone for the initiative of 21st batch, that is campus to career. And I hope we are able to carry this forward, and our batchmates are able to capture your attention, clarify your doubts, and engage with you in a comfortable manner, like we did today, where you are able to freely ask your questions. That is the main objective, that you ask the questions, however simple or irrelevant you may seem. But please feel free to ask, like how you were asking in my class. So feel free to ask. My classmates are just like how you were. We were like you 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. We were like you 25 years ago. No difference. Somebody might be the director at some company and managing director XYZ. but you're all going to be there. 25 years later, you will be talking to batch 73 and talking about life and how you made it in your life and what mistakes you made, and probably will not reveal some of them. Okay, so thank you very much, Cyril, for setting the tone. The rest of the batch has got a high standard to live up to, and he being a pathfinder or a trailblazer in our batch, he has only said that I will give the first presentation. So it's good in a fact way that he has put a high bar for it. And wishing Cyril all the best, and thanking 47th batch and all the students and SNAS Secretary Manuel for coordinating the entire event and making it a success. So Cyril, I think we can all log off, and you can take his number from me. I already shared your number with Manuel.
Yeah. And I'll look me up on LinkedIn Connect, and then reach out if I can help in any way.
Okay. Bye. Good night.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, sir.